So many people with numbers, it feels super overwhelming, right? We literally like let's rewind, 40, 50 years ago, you might make like one, maybe two financial transactions like in the course of a week, like a few days, right?
Right.
Now you're hard pressed to get away from not making two or three a day financial transactions, right? Be it buying gas or food or going to the grocery store, or a subscription is hitting your account, or you have so many different credit cards, different accounts, different, monetary streams, all these different things. And so life is pretty freaking complicated, right? I think a lot of people avoid being successful in the way they could be with money and the way that they'd like to be because of overwhelm.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And actually, the analogy that the company uses that I've kind of adopted and kind of made some videos around this is the idea of a GPS, right? So you speaking of the overwhelm and this kind of stuff, and it's very, very true. So could I get all the way across the country using an old map? Sure, I could. Would it take into account the weather aspects, all of the construction, all of the traffic, right? Would it take into affect any of that? And then when you make a wrong turn, what's it going to do, right? So could you do it? Yes, you could. But in this advanced society, when things are happening so quickly and there is access to information in the palm of your hand, why would I choose to do things the old way when I have access to something that's way more advanced, way easier to use?
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified. I am your host, Jack owner Jax Kreider. Today we have Mr. Andy Bennetts, and he is an expert sort of in the planning space of finances, and he's got some really interesting things to say about that and sort of the way that the program that he is a part of does. It's something that is really fascinating to me. So I'm excited for us to get started. So welcome, Andy. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're excited to be on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jax. Appreciate the opportunity. Absolutely. So I am born and raised in Southwest Colorado. When people think of Colorado, they think of Denver. That's about 7 hours from me. So I'm out in the sticks, as it were. But born and raised here, knew very early on that I wanted to be an educator and pursued that. I got my bachelor's, then got my master's, and thought at this point I would be like a superintendent or principal. And God had different plans, took me down a different route. I've been in technology space for the last 15 years or so. Always been a numbers guy. Both my parents were accountants, and so numbers always came easy to me. So then you marry the technology with the finance aspect of things, and then you couple that with being able to train people and teach people and help them live their best lives. It's been a awesome, amazing journey, and I'm super excited to be here and chat with you guys about this.
I love that.
Yeah,
Well, yes, and it's so, it's a very interesting the paths we take. We often don't sort of start on one path and then stay there. I guess some people
so
do,
true.
but that's definitely not been my path either. Like if you would have told me that I was going to end up in mortgage back when I was in high school, I think I would have said, well, I could see that to a certain extent, right? Like my mom worked in interior design, and I also like math or whatever, right? And so like kind of in a weird way, it's like the intersection of like homes and numbers, but definitely not what everybody thought I was going to be, a teacher. And so much like the path you thought you were going to walk down, that's I guess the path that I thought was going to be more my general trajectory. But I'm going to be very real with you. I could not deal with the fact that there was so much oversight in education about like what the
Mhm.
government wanted you to do. And then, the fact that you couldn't control the type of parents and kids and all the things. And so I was like, nah, we're not going down that path. And so I always joke that I educate just on a very different plane, right? I educate in a different way. And I know you do too. And so I know that the program that you represent deals with some software type products. So I guess tell us a little bit more about like what that exactly is, because I know so many people with numbers. I actually had a conversation about this just yesterday. It feels super overwhelming, right? Like I was making this comment that on a previous podcast episode where we literally like let's rewind, 40, 50 years ago, you might make like one, maybe two financial transactions like in the course of a week or a couple, like a few days, right?
Right.
Now you're hard pressed to get away from not making two or three a day financial transactions, right?
Crazy.
Be it buying gas or food or going to the grocery store, or a subscription is hitting your account for something that you bought, or you have so many different credit cards, different accounts, different, monetary streams, all these different things. And so life gets pretty freaking complicated, right?
Call
And
me.
I think a lot of people avoid being successful in the way they could be with money and the way that they'd like to be because of overwhelm.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And actually, the analogy that the company uses that I've kind of adopted and kind of made some videos around this is the idea of a GPS, right? So you speaking of the overwhelm and this kind of stuff, and it's very, very true. So could I get all the way across the country using an old map? Sure, I could. Would it take into
Absolutely.
account the weather aspects, the all of the construction, all of the traffic, right? Would it take into affect any of that? And then when you make a wrong turn, what's it going to do, right? So could you do it? Yes, you could. But in this advanced society, when things are happening so quickly and there is access to information in the palm of your hand, why would I choose to do things the old way when I have access to something that's way more advanced, way easier to use? So that is the basically what we equate it to is we have a financial GPS that you say, hey, I want to be financially free. Here is where I'm starting. I'm going to give you the fastest route to that. When, not if, but when you miss a step or when life happens, we just reroute, and it makes it so simple. And to your point, it takes all of the guesswork out of what do I do next, because it's overwhelming, and it's almost to the point where you just don't want to even get started because there's too many choices.
I was gonna say that is definitely, for a lot of our listeners, I know that some of them may be neurotypical, like I am. I'm ADHD, right? Some of them, the interesting part is that you've got a lot of people that are highly successful. They make plenty of money. They are doing a lot of the quote unquote right things, right? Like they're investing money in 401ks and they're trying to keep their debt in check and but it is really, really hard because even though you technically don't have to make financial decisions, boom, like immediately, we definitely feel that pressure to do that, that we need to be making calls, decisions, handling things immediately. And it does also feel very overwhelming about if you make a misstep, because I think the world was a little bit more forgiving 40, 50 years ago. Like if you misstepped and, you could kind of get back into place or whatever. And I think on the positive side, we have so many more opportunities right now, right? Like more opportunities to make money, more opportunities to invest in different things that we never had the ability to do before. Like so many different cool things. But yeah, I mean, it is really overwhelming because I mean, even for me, there are moments where I'm like, okay, what was I supposed to be doing again? Was I supposed to pay off that debt, or was I supposed to was I putting that money in savings? What was I gonna do with that again?
Right. So I could go lots of different directions, but let me throw this out here because this one I think just does a really good job of this. We'll talk about the cool little thing that I'm doing here with my screen right here. But if I showed your listeners this debt load and we asked you as a financial professional, other people as a financial professional, how would you pay off this debt load? We asked 10 people. I'm guessing we're going to get 10 opinions or 12 or 15 opinions, right? So the reality is that there's no shortage of opinions on how to pay off debt. My follow up is this: do you believe that there is one mathematical, fastest, most efficient way to pay off debt? What do you think, Jax?
Probably. I
Probably
mean,
so.
the math never lies, right? Like I tell people all the time, like we can skew the numbers, we can reroute them, we can do things differently and like creatively, but it doesn't change the actual raw data of dollars and cents, right? Like it's literally just math calculations on the back.
Exactly right. And math does not lie. So could you do all of those math calculations yourself? You could if you wanted to spend all day staring at a spreadsheet. I, for one, don't want to do that. That sounds terrible, right? So if I could leverage a technology that tells me what to do and then gives me that next step. My grandpa is probably the wisest person I ever knew. And he said that, when getting directions, he was talking in a spiritual sense, but, God does not give you every direction. He gives you the next direction, because if you gave all of them at the same time, it's like whoa, I can't remember past the second or third step. So give me the next one, right? What is the next thing I need to do that will help me on my path to get me there paid off as quickly as possible? And then when I do that, give me the next one. And then when again life happens, something goes wrong with the car or something like that, I can drop that in. The other thing that I love about this system is that there's lots of budgeting apps that talk about where we're at right now and what the history is. Okay. To my knowledge, there's not anything that combines that with forecasting, right? What happens
Right.
if I invest in this right now? What does that do to my future? When will I have everything paid off? And this does that. So I think when you can combine history, what I'm doing right now, and what the impact of my choices are right now to my future, that's a pretty good combination right there.
Well, right. I mean, because let's be real, a lot of times we're not making missteps because we're bad people or because, we were intentionally trying to blow up our lives or whatever. We're sometimes making, and I'm going to call them quote unquote bad. There a lot of times they're not really bad, right? They're just choices, right? And we all are making them constantly every day, hundreds of choices. And yeah, we're not always going to be perfect, but what is so hard is understanding the math and whatever. I mean, it's why there's a little bit of a finesse that has to happen in my space, because there is the pure math right on the back end of like what makes the most sense. But then there's the other aspect that we deal with all too often, which is the emotional aspect of like, are you in the right headspace to be, like, are we in the mindset where we're comfortable with some of these decisions, right? Does our mindset need to be stretched a little bit more? Maybe we're being a little too conservative, or vice versa. Maybe we're trying to just shoot for the moon and not having any sort of plan or thought process or like, a GPS system to kind of, tell us, hey, so this is going to be, sort of the next most logical step, etc. And so I oftentimes think that because I had a conversation yesterday that I agree. I don't actually believe that true budgeting works. Like what I mean by that is the concept of literally hammering out every single dollar that you spend to go like this place or whatever, because there needs to be some level of flexibility, right, in life.
Yep.
But I think sometimes where we get stuck in overwhelm is we're sitting and we want some of that flexibility, but on the same token, the back end is saying, okay, but if I do this, is it gonna like jack everything else up?
Hmm.
Like, am I gonna throw a literal financial grenade into my life
Sure.
where now I'm gonna be paying for it for 10 or 15 or 20 years or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I'm coming off of this amazing trip down to Orlando with the company that I work with. And there was just so many awesome aha moments that I had. And one of them, just directly to your point, I thought was brilliant. He said, if we could figure out a way to create a fork that had a calorie counter on it, and then you grab that, the little bite of cake, and it's like, oh, that's, 20 calories, whatever, and do it. But then you grab the whole one, and then it starts adding things up. So it's like that. Do we have the immediate knowledge of what our current choices are making? And the answer is no, right? So that's again why I love that forecasting aspect of like, if you make this decision now, if you buy this car, if you make this investment, what is that going to do for your payoff date, right? Which we have a guaranteed payoff date if you follow this plan, guaranteed down to the penny and minute or day when you will have that all paid off, which is just brilliant. One other thing I thought was super intriguing to me is that we're in November now, right? When we're recording this, beginning of the year is always New Year's resolutions. People are like, we need to, get healthier and start saving more. So, I mean, the question is, what are the two most common themes around New Year's resolutions? What do you think?
Usually it's money and weight loss.
Bingo. Finance and fitness, right? Finance and fitness. And would you agree that we'll start with fitness and then we'll jump over to finance? Would you agree that the idea of losing weight or the practicality of it is not overly complex? It's eat less, exercise more, right? Eat less, exercise more. Same with finances, right? Spend less, save more, or invest more, right? So we know what to do, but do we do it all the time, right? And I'm thinking probably the answer is no, because we continue to have these resolutions every year over and over again. So having a plan, it's like we've said the financial GPS, but think of it like this, like a trainer, right? If you invest in a trainer and you invest in a thing, if you're putting money and effort towards that, you're much more likely to succeed.
For
Same idea
sure.
with your finances. If you have a plan and you have a thing that is telling you exactly what you need to do and maneuvering with you when life happens, it's going to make you much more likely to be successful.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that it is difficult because the thing is that a lot of this goes back, if we like go all the way back and we go into the nuts and the bolts of why people don't make the decisions they possibly could or should make. And then also not only that, but why do we get stuck in overwhelm? And I think a lot of this goes back to the mentality and the mindset aspect, because The truth is, as humans, with good information, like we literally can accomplish anything. Our minds are powerful beyond measure, right? Our bodies, ability to heal themselves, I mean, think about like the stories you've heard of like mothers lifting up cars because, their child was stuck underneath it or whatever the case may be, right? These really extreme examples of superhuman strength, superhuman ability, like from a logical like perspective, right? Some of the ways that our brain, kind of operates, etc. The challenge is that a lot of times we don't feel like we can, right? We get stuck in I'm not good enough or I haven't done enough or well, that's great for Andy and Jax to say they're good at numbers. I'm not good at numbers. All right. That's not my natural bent and so one of the things that I talk about a lot is, first of all, coming into awareness, right? We have to be aware. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm numbers is not my strong suit. And I wouldn't say I'm not good with numbers because it's not true. You have the ability to be good at anything you so choose. It may not be what you enjoy. It may not be what you naturally have natural ability for. That part is true, but it doesn't mean that you're bad at numbers. Okay. So like we should just take that little bad piece like out of our freaking vocabulary. But what I will say is, a lot of times we're just not leaning in and getting the tools to set us up for success. Like you said, right? Here's the truth. You start out January 1 with your New Year's resolution to lose weight. And what do we all, for what's the first step, right? Everybody buys a gym membership. That's why all the people who are active gym goers hate January because you have 4,000 new friends that have joined you in the gym. The problem is that you don't stick with it. Why? Well, you don't have some level of accountability like you're right, you don't have like a partner in crime to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow, or you haven't hired a coach to kind of like keep you down the path or whatever. And I'll tell a little story and then I'll let you weigh in, Andy. But so for a really long time, I kind of thought the concept of a coach, whether it be life coach or business coach or any of this stuff, was kind of a little bit like crap because I'm like, okay, so I need to pay somebody to like basically hold my feet to the fire because I understand in fairness to myself, I have very strong wherewithal. So if I decide I'm going to do something, come hell or high water, it doesn't really matter who says I can or can't. I'm going to do it. It's just my personality, right? Like that's just my natural driving force. However, what I've learned is that with tools or with accountability sort of people in your life, right? Like things like that that can kind of tap you on the shoulder, whether it be tech or person, a lot of times you accomplish so much more. Not because the person necessarily made you more crazy capable,
Yeah,
but
right.
because it sort of gave you direction, very clear, delineated direction. And one thing we know about money is it loves a plan. And so, with clear, delineated direction, no matter what financial decision you make, right, and what financial successes you take, that can help you really expand and blow up.
hmm No, I completely agree. I was looking back through. There's a couple things that jumped in my mind while you're talking about this. I just posted this morning, and again, it's coming off of this high from this awesome workshop we had. You cannot have a new reality with an old mentality. It sounds like something you put on a bumper sticker, but like, man, if you really think about that for a second, it's so true. It's so true. I joke, I've got a workshop coming up tomorrow that we call it Debt Behind Me, Wealth Before Me. And we just talk about here's the reality of where debt is at in the United States. Let's look at your specific use case because we know everybody's is different. But if we can provide hope for getting out of debt in half to a third of the time, would that be worth having a conversation? And to your point, maybe not feeling so overwhelmed, having a specific plan and being able to do that. And all of that is great. And you mentioned something about knowledge, and I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning new things. But what I've come to find out is knowledge is useless unless you put it into action. I feel like I
That's
get
so
a
true.
lot of really good information for people, but if they just put that in their back pocket and they just continue on along their merry way, nothing's going to change. So back to that idea of, you can't have a new reality with an old mentality. It's like, it's great that you're getting this information. Now, what are you going to do with it? Right. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's so good and so helpful because I do agree. There's so often where I love knowledge and so I'm always seeking it out and I'm always finding it and I'm always like categorizing it and like putting it in my field. But yeah, if you're not putting it into practice, like really what good is it? And I know that there's some people out there probably right now listening to this podcast and they're thinking to themselves, okay, well, that's all good, fine, and well. I have a lot of money. I am very financially successful, right? I am all these things or whatever, right? And I think a lot of people, though, they don't feel the financial success, right? So it's like, yeah, you've done all the things, you checked all the boxes, you've done everything that everybody told you you should do, you could do, and whatever. And maybe you feel like a failure. Not necessarily on paper, you look great, you've checked all the boxes. And I think a lot of times that's because you haven't sat down and asked yourself, what is it that you want, and then allow yourself to utilize a tool like this one to help you, like you said, look at the past and see where we've been, look at the
Hmm.
future and see where do we want to be, and forecast out like where that is, and then also make adjustments along the way. Because that's the thing, and that's the hardest part probably of my job, is to try to help the people, because mortgage, like I said, I mean, you literally can go to anybody who's licensed to do a mortgage to get a mortgage, right? Like if you qualify, no offense, but any idiot can do a loan, like from the sense of just like plugging all the stuff in the system. The secret sauce to mortgage is not necessarily just the actual knowledge to do it. It's being able to weave in, having some emotionally difficult conversations with you about where are you at, what do you want, what are we looking for, and then helping disseminate down to that nut of like, okay, this is probably what's going to fit you, right?
Right.
And what's going to fit you right now, and based on what you told me, is likely going to fit you for the future, not always forever, but like for at least whatever. Because think about it, I mean, most mortgages are taking a matter of 30 years, and right now we're having a conversation about up to 50-year mortgages. These are
Yeah.
very long, very extended windows of time. Like we have to have some level of projection out to think about how we want that money to look long term.
Right. Absolutely. And that's you hit it on the head. It is projection, right? This is, and I'm sure your listeners know this, but let me just give them an unfortunate reality. Your bank is not in does not have your best financial interest in mind. They just,
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't say that in a sense of like bankers are bad people. I think bankers are lovely people. I've got friends that are bankers, but the banking industry is
For
not
sure.
in it to help you financially. They're
No.
just not. And I can prove it to you. Like let me throw another image out here. This is typically what the bank's plan is, right? So you're going to start off and sign your 30 or 50-year mortgage, like what we were just talking about. And what their plan is they're going to take you on this long, winding road where you're not paying off. I got to turn this back on so I can see where we're at. Just as a side note here, generally speaking, on a 30-year loan, you are paying more in interest. Oops, wrong one. This one. Up till the 23rd year, 23 years of more interest than principal. Think about that for half a second. That's insanity. It's craziness. Okay. So what if, again, financial GPS, we could show you a way to do that in a faster route. It's not it's not magic. It's just math, right? If we can show you a faster way to do that, where you're not having to pay that much interest, you're still going to pay some, right? I mean, they're still going to get theirs. But if we can figure out a way to do that faster by using the same principles that banks use for our benefit rather than theirs, why
Right.
would we not have that conversation?
Right. Well, and it allows you to make strategic moves too, right? Because here's a reality. Like a lot of people, and it's so funny to me because I'm not pro telling people what to do. So I'm pro giving you the information and allowing you to be an adult and be able to make the decision. Not that I won't give suggestions or thoughts, or based on the information you told me, Andy, this is what might fit best with your scenario, whatever. But a lot of people are like the anti-mortgage people, like they're, mortgage is the devil or whatever. Well, no, it's just a tool like anything else, right? Is a tool that you can utilize or whatever. And then you have some people that are pro keep your mortgage forever until the end of time because you can make more money in the market or whatever. And like the beauty is when you have a tool that can kind of show you both, then you can be able to make those decisions, right? If you feel like, as opposed to paying a whole bunch of extra money or whatever, that's not in your best interest, and you want to hold the loan so that you can then start throwing money over here on a bunch of other stuff because it's going to be better for you,
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Or if it's going to give you a lot more peace of mind, not necessarily just the dollars and cents. I'm not talking about necessarily that. I'm talking about it's going to give you the peace of mind to know you own your house outright, right? Like we paid it off. We did all the stuff.
Hmm.
Then you can go down these paths. The problem and the challenge is think about it, even in my space. So I can give you, and because I'm a nerd and I have done a lot of things in the financial space, right? So like I've sold a property and casualty, so that's like home and auto insurance. I've sold life insurance products. I've sold like a lot, just a lot of things or whatever. I at one point thought about being a financial planner, like as far as like investments and things like that. And so I did a very deep dive into that whole world and space, even though I've never professionally done it. I can give you pretty good ideas based on the information you can provide me, right? Like, hey, this might be smart for you, right? Pay this down, pay this off, do things this way. And I can show you some different really creative and options. The challenge is that I'm not doing what this program is doing on the back end. Like I'm not the one who can actually truly calculate exactly what the math is going to track out to. I also don't have the knowledge to know like what has happened in the past completely and like what you entirely want for the future. And so I think what's fascinating to me most about the product is the fact that it kind of can allow you to just do life as you would like, because it helped me understand. I mean, yes, I guess the ultimate goal of the product is to try to put you in a position where you're completely financially free. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be debt free if that's not what you're looking for immediately, because you're trying to maybe heavy load in investments or other things. Am I correct me if I'm wrong on that front?
Absolutely. And honestly, perfect timing of this conversation, because if you had asked me a week ago, I probably wouldn't have had as much insight into really the power of the program. There's kind of two levels there. There's one of just getting out of debt, and then there's one of kind of like hyper speeding that process up where we're investing in our wealth as well. And then you can borrow and you're basically using the dollar twice, right? So you can borrow against it to apply it against debt and then also have that invest. And then it goes from, because I see all the time when we run these free analysis, we see 30-year loans drop to 10 years. Very, very standard. That's a very, very standard thing. A third of the time, that's not crazy. Now, let me just point out, because there's probably some of you that are doubters out there. I know you. I can see you. Like, well, I'm gonna pay double. I'm gonna pay two times. Whatever that one is, the avalanche mode or whatever, the snowball, right? Absolutely, that will help. Okay, that will take a year, 3, maybe 5 years off. Okay, no problem. That is going to help. However, I guarantee you there's not a system out there that's going to be able to help you pay off as much interest as this one is. Case in point, this program over the last 21 years, we've been in business for 21 years, has paid off $2.8 billion in interest that would have normally gone to the bank. $2.8 billion. That's insane. That's like monopoly money.
Well, the thing that people have to understand, and I don't disagree with you. So even though I work in the industry, and it's so funny because I get knocked all the time. Like I literally did a podcast episode for somebody else's channel where we talked about when is not the right time to buy a house. And you're
Mm-hmm.
saying to yourself, but wait a minute, you
Yeah,
do
mortgage.
mortgage for a living.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
people are not buying houses
Right.
and they're not taking out loans, then
Sure.
you're not making money. And you're absolutely right. However, my interest and the whole reason I created this channel and a lot of the programs that I offer and is your financial freedom, whatever that looks like for you, right? Your mastery simplified in a way where you can understand it, you can own it, you can feel good about it, you can feel comfortable about it, and not your grandpa's version and not your grandma's version and not your mom's version, not society's version. Your version, whatever it is that looks like, right? You and whoever you're doing life with. So if that's like a life partner, a spouse, or whoever that is, that you can look and when you're sitting on a porch in a rocking chair, right? That you can look at each other and be like, yeah, we lived a successful life, right? A life that we're proud of, that we feel good about, not the one that we lived where somebody else told us what to do. And the banks are not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. I tell people that all the time. Like when people, because I get it, understand buying a house is a very, very emotional process, right? Because it's not about the physical brick and mortar of the house. Like that's not what it's about. It's about the memories you're going to make inside, the relationships you're going to build, that you're going to have family members. You might bring home a child there. They're going to take their first steps, right? This is a very emotional process. When it comes to the dollars and cents, it's literally just math. So the bank is giving you a loan not because they're like, man, Andy's such a nice guy. He seems like, he's good for it. So we're just gonna like sign a little piece of paper and then send it along his merry way. It's about them making money. And so they're doing, and trust me when I tell you, the amount of actuarial, because and so let's roll back for a hot minute. When I was in high school, I actually did a day where I had to shadow somebody. And because I like math so much, I shadowed somebody who does actuarial science. And so for
Okay.
those of you who are not aware what actuarial science is, it's in essence people using lots and lots of tables of tons and tons of data over the course of time. And they look at patterns and they look at projections and they basically are figuring out what the different risk factors are for all of these types of things. Okay. So like what is the risk if we sell a product at like an insurance product at X, what's the percentage of we're going to have to pay out? And the reason they're doing it is they have to figure out a price that they can set it for where they can not only make money, okay, but they also can sustain and succeed, right? Like they're not in business just for a hobby, like just again like Andy said, out of the goodness of their heart, they're in it to make money. And so same thing with mortgage, same thing with insurance products, all these different things. When people get pissed off because their insurance company raised the rates on them and what a bunch of jerks, I'm like, it's just math. Like it has nothing to do with you. They didn't like look at you and say, Andy's a crappy driver,
Screw
so
you over.
we hate him. Yeah, we hate him. So we're going to raise his rate. It has nothing to do with that, guys. Like it's literally just math. And so you can use that same math, that's all of those same concepts to
Exactly.
your benefit if you allow yourself to, right? But you have to be able to have something behind you that can do it. And you obviously don't have the money to hire your own actuarial science people to do all the risk factors or whatever. But we live in a day and age where technology is shortening that, right? We're already seeing it like with AI and with all these different things. Like the barrier of entry is now so much better than it ever has been. And so it's just funny to me because even though I can be a very emotional person, when it comes to numbers, I'm always like, guys, it's just math. Like, why is everybody getting pissed off about this?
Right.
You don't have to like it, but the math is the math.
Correct.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Welcome to Financial Mastery Simplified, your go-to podcast for making smart money decisions. We break down complex financial topics into easy-to-understand advice you can use every day. Our experts cover everything from budgeting and saving to investing and retirement planning. We give you the tools to take control of your money and build the future you want. With Financial Mastery Simplified, you'll feel informed and empowered to make the best choices for your financial health. Tune in to Financial Mastery Simplified on your favorite podcast platform. Start your journey to financial confidence today.
Visit us at fms.tips and fms.college for more information.
Welcome to House U, where we believe in the power of education. At House U, we're more than just a brand. We're your partner in home ownership, dedicated to educating, equipping, and empowering you every step of the way. Education is at the heart of everything we do. We offer comprehensive resources designed to make home ownership simple and accessible for all. From understanding mortgage options to mastering home maintenance, House U provides the knowledge you need to make informed decisions with confidence. We host workshops and seminars, bringing together experts and community members to share insights and build a stronger, more informed community. Because when you're educated, you're empowered. House U, home ownership made simple for all. Visit our website or contact us today to start your journey with House U. Empower yourself with knowledge and embrace the joy of home ownership.
Thanks for your patience. Now back to our conversation.
The math is the math, and you hit it on the head. Like we carry in our pockets, more computing power than has ever been in the reality. Right? It's insane to me. Back to this idea of getting the best out of our reality at this point. Okay. So, and I forget the numbers on this, but it's like I think it was a $750,000 house. So $500,000 house. You're going to pay more than what it is. I apologize. Let me try this again. $400,000 house. We're going to do this one more time so I get the right numbers. This is a $400,000 house on a 30-year loan. There we go. Now we're on the right ballpark here.
There
Okay.
we go.
The reality is that you're going to pay 56% more than that just to pay this off. Okay. You're still going to pay this with our financial GPS. However, look at the amount of time or money that you're going to save, over $100,000. And this is the one that I want to just highlight right here is, in addition to money savings, you're saving time. Okay. And then what do you do with that time, right? If I can, for this 13 years that I'm normally paying off all of my debt, not just my mortgage, but all of my debt, what if I put that in a place where I can gain interest, right? If I can gain account, and this is only on 1%. So again, this is this idea of not only are we eliminating debt, but we are going from debt to wealth if we have a plan and we follow the plan. That's what we're all about.
Right. No, and I agree. I mean, it's interesting that you made the comment about, more computing power, because I'll never forget when my mom got her very first iPhone. She was very early adopter, which is actually kind of hilarious because my mom is like the least tech person ever. Like my dad is usually the more techie one. He sells software, has pretty much my whole life. He's an electrical engineer. He's kind of very nerdy and techie. And my mom went into the AT&T store and, got the first iPhone. That was, a new cool thing. And so she said, okay. And she said to me, the man who handed her the phone looked at her and said, I need you to understand, this is a computer. It's not a phone. And she said, what? And he said, this is a computer. It basically can do everything that a computer can do, more or less. And the fact that we can hold that in our hands, and not just 2-3 generations ago, I mean, heck, there was barely electricity. You know what I mean? Think about that for a minute. And so I think a lot of times when we are dealing with a very overwhelmed, anxious, frustrated society, it's because not only, one, are we still trying to follow outdated plans, right? Plans that maybe were created when life was a little bit simpler, when life had a little bit less knowledge and understanding and information. Now we have this great ability, not only to be able to make money, to be able to understand money, to, whatever. And even if you don't understand every single aspect of it, right? That's the other thing that I've learned. When I went to law school, I'll never forget, if you ever have to take the bar exam, at least in Texas, it's a 3-day exam. And the hard part is not the exam. That's not what the hard part is. The
No.
hard part is the information you have to know to pass the exam. And the amount of information basically could fill the entire room that I'm sitting in, which is about 12 by 12 room. Okay. Like we're talking about books stacked. And so what you learn very quickly is that you will never be able to put that much data into your head. You can't. It's pretty much impossible. What you have to do is you have to step back. You have to use the tools at your disposal. So like your ability to recall certain pieces, to understand the important concepts and how the concepts get applied across that board, right? And be able to lean in that way. But it's hard because that's not what we're taught. We're taught that we have to think about when you go to school, right? Like when we take a test, what are we doing? We're regurgitating facts. Fact 1, fact 2, fact 3. But the truth is that in life, you're never going to be able to regurgitate that much information. You just can't. And if you are on a path to try to seek out exactly how, Jax, you promised Financial Mastery Simplified. Well, guess what the simplification is? You don't have to know everything. You need good information, so you need enough to be able to make well-informed decisions and then you need good mindset. You need the ability to dig into yourself and ask yourself hard questions, right? So awareness of like where I'm at, where I want to be, what I want this to look like. And then you need tools. And
Yes.
you need to partner and pair all of these things together and then just start walking down the path and knowing that the path isn't going to be straight, that even with a financial GPS or whatever other method you choose,
Right.
that you're going to misstep because life's going to life, or you just go off rail for a minute and you want to do whatever it is you want to do, or something happens that changes your whole perspective. And so now your plan utterly changes, right? That's okay.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you have to be able to do that and do that well.
Right. No, and I completely agree with everything you just said. That what I've learned over the last few years is that you rise or fall to the level of the systems you have in place. So if you have no systems in place of how to handle your money, and to your point, we had this conversation before we started, the people that are listening to this are doing well financially, right? You have your 401k, you've got your good job, you've got some things set aside, but it shocks me when I ask people, like, when are you going to be completely out of debt? There, I get one of two answers: I don't know, or after I die. Like, those are the two answers. And that, I mean, you were talking about anxiety, right? I mean, I every day I start with, like, okay, I've got 3 elephants in front of me. I know it's one bite at a time, but which elephant do I choose? So it's just like, it's crazy. So if we can take all of that mental energy and anxiety off of our shoulders and say, I don't need to worry about that because I've got systems in place. It's going to tell me exactly what I need to do. I don't need to worry about that. I've got a million other things I need to worry about. I'm going to trust the system because it's based on 4 million lines of code and all of these banking principles. It knows what's in my best interest, not the bank's. I'm going to trust that I'm going to take this turn. I'm going to make this strategic transfer to pay down interest or to earn interest. And that's just one less thing for me to worry about. And I know if I follow the plan, I've got a guaranteed date that I'm going to be paid off 10, 15 years faster than what the bank's going to do. So just the mental energy that takes off and the peace of mind is like nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and a lot of times too, it's also because you're right. The mental load does. I think that mental load is actually worse than just about anything else. Like, I'll tell you, and I gave you a brief synopsis when we spoke here a couple of weeks back about what happened to me, personally, because you were like, oh, you seem like to be in a fairly good financial position, whatever. And I started laughing. And why did I start laughing? Well, because we were in an overall fairly good financial position until life lifed, until we basically got decimated by a crazy situation. And some of it, and I always say that, look, you have to look at things holistically, right? Because some of it was based on decisions that myself and my husband made 1,000%. And so I take ownership, right, of the part of the puzzle that was my responsibility. But then a lot of it was very outside of our control, right? Like, situations and scenarios that, like, we did not have any say in. We did not necessarily want our house to flood. That was never, something we wanted. We never wanted to be dealing with, months and months where we're doing remodel and rehabbing and all these different things and all this out of pocket expense and it just is a lot. But to your point about the systems and putting things in place, I've thought about this a lot of, like, why I didn't crater. I think one thing is that I had a lot of wherewithal, right? I had created that muscle of understanding that I have to not be so emotional about it. It is emotional and I'm allowed to feel emotion. I'm allowed to be upset, but I can't sit in it. I have to understand what the situation is, understand the part that I played in it, understand the part that I didn't play in it, and move down the path. Like, what's the plan? But also what tools that I have and use and resources, be them technology, be them people, or whatever that is, to try to lessen the mental load, because it is and was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, just manhandling and managing all of the different pieces. And I think that if you're in that position where either life is lifed or you're like, man, I don't feel like I want to be, or maybe you just got laid off. And so, like, you've done all the right things, right? Like, you did all the job things, and then now AI is gunning for your job, or whatever the case may be. I know a lot of people feel that way about gunning for their jobs, but know that there is the other side, right? And if you can lean into some of the tools and abilities and the people that you have surrounding you, you can find mastery a lot easier and a lot simpler, and with a lot less mental
Right.
stress, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I mean, I had a mentor tell me a while ago, and this is not a new statement, but it was new to me. It's do what you do best and outsource the rest, right? If math is not your thing, and to your point, I think we have some very negative mental, not
Block.
stereotype word. Yes, exactly. Blocks and just these narratives that are playing over and over in our head that we need to stop, right? Me included. But if you know that math is not your thing, but you know that you want to set your family up for success, then outsource that, right? Find somebody that you trust. Again, and we'll get to this in a second, but I would love to have conversations with you. I'm the worst salesperson in the world because I just want to help people. So if there's something that I can do to help somebody, whether that's setting up high yield savings accounts or just looking at different investment opportunities, or if you are in debt, any type of thing, which as you were talking about this, I know your use case was just this crazy home thing. Medical debt is the number one reason for bankruptcy, which is just
Yeah.
crazy. No one can see that coming. Yes, you can protect yourself with life insurance, but that's not always a guarantee because it's just so expensive. So if that has happened to you,
But even if you have life insurance, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not necessarily dying.
right, right, exactly. Yeah. So there's life is going to life. I love that. I'm going to use that term a lot. So when that has happened and you are ready to move forward in a better direction and partner with somebody, come up with systems, right, that are going to help you to take that mental load off. And to your point, I wanted to get back to this. I always think of the Dave Ramsey thing of like eating on rice and beans. Like I love steak way too much to live on rice and beans. So this is going to fit into your lifestyle, and you're going to see because you've got, that forecasting ability of like, hey, you know what, if I could scale back $50 on my coffee, what is that going to do to my payoff date? Oh my gosh, I just saved 3 months or 6 months. I could be 6 months debt free just by saving a little bit on coffee. That's crazy. I want to make that decision, but that's your choice. It's not me, to your point, dictating you have to live on rice and beans for 15 years. Like no one's going to do that.
I was gonna say, well, I'm kind of the anti Dave Ramsey because even though I think some of the suggestions and the thought processes and the things he does are great, and there's nothing wrong with him, right? Like the debt snowball is an effective tool to, in a fairly simple concept of like how you can maneuver debt and things like that. And I think that's awesome. And we definitely need some practical help and tips and things like that. And if that's work for you, that's amazing. But I think the problem is that you have to have stuff in your life, tools in your life that are sustainable tools. It's sort of like I tell people all the time. So I'm not necessarily I wouldn't call myself the healthiest eater because I'm a foodie. And I love to eat and whatever. But I'm also not a particularly horrible eater too. I go through waves where like I'm eating really like trash and then I'm eating, fairly clean or whatever. But I know myself. There's no way in hell you're ever gonna get me to do a lifestyle where it's like keto, where like that's how I'm gonna eat for the rest of my life. Like it's just never gonna happen. I like french fries and I like, sweet things and whatever, like dessert. So I'm not going to just be able to do that forever and ever and ever. And so what I will do is occasionally I do like a very hard reset where I'll do like candida or I'll do a candida diet or I'll do, something else that's like very like, a keto that's like a very hard reset. And I'll do that for 30 or 60 days. The challenge is that anytime you're doing sort of like a detox type of a program or platform, very rarely are you going to be able to mentally sustain that sort of a thing forever and very super long term. And so that is why it's super helpful to have something where you can make some pivots with it because the truth is that you are going to be able you are going to go through life where a lot of times you're not going to be able to be like, "Oh, well, I'm never eating, I'm never drinking coffee at Starbucks ever again." Well, I mean, that's a pretty extreme and like, yeah, maybe you can do it to help yourself reset financially, like to kind of get you a little further down the path. But like forever is like a really strong word. And I think it's kind of unsustainable, especially if in the circle that you're a part of, maybe that's like a thing, right? Like that's something that you go to and you enjoy as a group. So I just want to caution people when it comes to any kind of financial mastery, you need to be able to be very honest and very real and very raw with yourself about what you can sustain, right? And it's perfectly fine to do detox and to go cold turkey if you can do that for a period of time or whatever, right? Like to kind of start getting yourself mentally reset or whatever. That's fine. But just know that in order to create the true habit, right? Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits? He talks a lot about how you create habits and whatever. One of the things he talks about is you have to make them simple. The habit has to be so simple that it's easy to do. Like Andy and I were talking before the show about a product that I use to record because for over 2 years, almost 3 years, it took me a long freaking time to get on video. Why did it take me a long time to get on video? Well, one, my mental space was not there. I was telling myself all kinds of stories about how I didn't look good on video and I don't always do my makeup. And I could hear my mother in the background, like yammering on about how I needed to do my makeup if I was going to be on video all the time. And then we added in the extra thing of I had a lot of equipment to set up if I had to record, right? Like I had to set up a camera and lights and blah, 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 blah. Well, so I basically tried to lower that barrier of entry to make it so easy that it's literally a few clicks of a button, boom, I can record, right? And so now recording video, it's only about the mental space of what I want to talk about, right? Like what do I want to get on there and record? And so there's only this one mental hurdle as opposed to the mental hurdle of what am I going to talk about? How am I going to set up my camera? How am I going to set up my microphone? How am I going to set up my lights? And like so when you can minimize down like this and make it simple, you will actually do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so be advised that when you come again, Financial Mastery Simplified, you have to simplify it down for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can do that through Debt Snowball or something like that, and that's an effective tool and that's going to work for you and you feel good about that and it doesn't expend a lot of mental energy and you'll feel successful that way, amazing. I say do that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It means that you want to purchase a tool like what Annie's talking about, and that's going to help you bridge that gap or whatever. Amazing. If that means that you need an awareness tool, like some of the financial tools like Rocket Money or things like this, right? That help you track, like, where's your money going? Like, how is it being spent? Yada, yada, whatever. It doesn't matter to me what way you get there, but you still have to get there.
Yep, I completely agree. And as you were talking about that, I wanted to spin it in a positive realm. So I was going to say the problem, but I would think both. So the problem and the solution lies in personal choice. Like drop the mic, that applies to everything, right? We talked
For
about
sure.
personal finance. We talked about personal fitness. The problem and the solution lie in your personal choices, right? So to your point, like, are you more likely to be successful when you're trying to lose weight if you put systems in place around you and accountability? Absolutely you are, right? So
For sure.
while doing Snowball is a good thing, is anybody holding you accountable to that? Is that, are you off track for that? Is there any way to kind of, so again, the more effort, and not even effort, but the more systems you have in place to keep you on track, the more successful you'll be. And that's
For
where
sure.
I love working with people about.
Well, and I'll go one step further. It's not even just about personal choice. It's also about awareness, right? Because like you have to own those choices that you're making. Because so oftentimes we're outsourcing our power by not only one, allowing somebody else to make the choice for you, be it an expert, be it society, be it an influencer or whoever the crap it is, right? Your mother, whoever it is, right? Whoever is that voice in the back of your head, you have to hold awareness around the financial decisions that you're making. And that's not me like being a jerk to you or being like wagging my finger. It's about what the consequences, good or bad. And I tell my daughter this all the time because every single choice has good and bad consequences, both, right? Every single choice, no matter which one you make, there is the yin and the yang, the good and the bad of each decision, right? So if you're eating clean, what's the bad, thing? Well, I guess I don't get to eat all the junk food kind of stuff or whatever, right? Maybe for you that's not technically a bad consequence, but it is the kind of bad to the good, right? And so you have to have that awareness because fortunately nobody is coming to save you in this life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the people that we have misguidedly believe are out for our good. I'm sorry, but the truth is that people are inherently selfish people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are more out for their own. And even people who are well-meaning, well-intentioned, really care about people, they're still, we are by nature just very selfish individuals. And so that's where it's super important for you to lean in. And so, Andy, it's been amazing having you. Thank you so much for coming. I know that there's something that you want to offer the listeners. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. And then I'll close this out.
Awesome. So this is the name of my company, Empower Wealth Solutions. So you can go to empowerwealth.solutions, and there's a get started button right there at the top of the screen. And what that will take you to is right to my calendar where we can have an Empower Wealth game plan session. 15 to 30 minutes. We can keep it super short and light. And then we'll determine whether this is a good fit or not. This is not an immediate decision. It's just getting to know you a little bit, kind of figuring out where you're at. And financially, everybody's going to be a little bit different. The numbers that I ran before are one case. For my wife and I, we did our numbers with our brand new house, and it saved us 15 years and $150,000. not changing our lifestyle, not living on rice and beans. That's what it did for us. Yours is going to be different, but if you are cash flow positive, which I'm guessing most of you are, we can help you to pay off all of your debts in a much faster route. And I would love to have that conversation with you, get to know you, and see if there's something we can do to help you out. That'd be great.
That's right. Yeah, make sure you tell him that you found him on Financial Mastery Simplified. We would love to make sure that we are always helping all of our lovely guests. And if you are in the stage where we're trying to figure out from a mental aspect of what are some of these blocks, right? Like, what are some of my natural financial strengths? Because we all have them, right? We all have strengths financially, whether you believe that or not. It is true. You have some financial strengths, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I overcome a lot of this? There's a program that we offer called Financial Instincts Framework, and we basically are trying to figure out some of that mentality aspect. We're trying to help you overcome some of these blocks, allow you to really lean in to tools like Andy's and others, right? To be able to get to exactly where you want to be, so that if you're having conversations with experts, even like myself on the mortgage side, that you're not getting pushed around, that you know exactly your own mind and what that needs to look like for you from the financial aspect, right? And so we would love for you to take a look at that. We also have tons of free resources. So if you are wanting to make sure that you're living your life on your terms and becoming, the financial master of your own universe, so to speak, we would love to help you with that. And so thank you so much for listening. We look forward to seeing you again next time on another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified.